김한테 하는 질문은요. 교육 분야는 물론 학생들한테도 티칭 어시스턴트로서 기술의 접근성이 굉장히 커졌습니다. 그렇다면 학교에서 교사의 역할은 어떻게 변해야 하는지, 티처의 롤이 어떻게 변해야 되는지 폴 김 의견이 궁금합니다. 특히 기존의 강의식 교육에 익숙한 한국 선생님들의 경우에는 앞으로 어떤 노력이 필요한지에 대해서도 말씀을 해주시기를 부탁을 드립니다. 이 질문에 대해서는 6분이 나도 그 질문 하고 싶었다는 동의를 하셨습니다.
Before I start, is there any questions you guys like to pick up from the list?
I don't think we have time to have interaction of questions amongst ourselves.
So then I'll give it a go
Yeah, sure.
first. Then, okay. The first question was about the future role of teachers. I actually published a book called "티칭이 아니라 코칭이다"라는 책이 나와 있거든요. 거기에 보면 그런 내용들이 상당히 많이 있습니다. 그래서 기회가 되시면 그 책을 한번 보시면 좋을 것 같고요. In terms of future role of teachers, we've seen the example of an AI-based teaching assistant. That's going to become prevalent. There is going to be more and more of those teaching assistants run by AI. Now, then people will ask, what about the teachers? What about the professors? Will they have jobs in the future? In my view, their role has to change. Currently, they are focused on transmitting information a lot. And they are focused a lot on displaying information and delivering information. But I think they have to change their role from teaching to coaching, right? You have to understand what students know or don't know, their weaknesses and strengths. Based on your assessment, you should be able to give them the right learning path and career path. And that's what's missing in today's education systems. There's no assessment of students at the individual level. There's no time, there's challenges to do that. But I think in Korea, our classroom size will be shrinking in the next decades or so. I know that we're not having enough population, so the classroom size will be getting smaller and smaller. We might have 2 teachers in classroom, maybe 3 teachers in classroom. I know the population problem is not a good thing, but we may have many teachers working in the classroom. That means more attention could be given to the students. So I think that gives an opportunity to understand the students much better so that we can give them better advice. So that's the answer for that first question. Should I just go through them? The second question about human science, between technology and humanism, etc. I know that I talked a lot about technology and the advancement around it, but I believe that it is very important to have more integrative learning environment with integrated culture, integrated problems, etc. When I go to a third world country, I would call it developing regions. I often take students who are majoring in other majors, not just engineers and computer scientists, but I invite students who are majoring in art or humanity or other majors because they have different views and they use different lens to look at the problem. Their input is extremely important. When you are developing innovative product, you have to make sure that you are contextualizing it. Oftentimes, when we work on solution in an innovation lab, the innovation works as an innovative solution only in the lab. When you take it out to the real world, oftentimes it's no longer innovative. That's because they were looking at the problem only through the lens of engineers and technologists. So that's why I think it is important to have integrative learning curriculum. And I think the Korean government is already working on that. I welcome that approach.
Okay. Sure.
Keep going?
Sure, keep going.
So the third question, for the children in the developing countries, should we focus more on agriculture and environmental science instead of teaching them technology? I have an experience of a education project in India. I went to Bihar, and when I went there to have some education program implemented there, the parents told me not to educate them. Their fear was that if I educate those children, they would leave the village and no one will be doing farming. So they told me not to educate. That was a pretty sad situation. So I had to improvise my solution. I came up with a farming simulation game. And I presented that game to the parents. I told the parents, I'm going to teach them farming, but with this game. It was a mobile game on a mobile phone. And the parents welcomed it. They said, oh, you're going to teach my kids farming? I love you. Teach them. But in fact, that mobile game had other things. Because you have to learn about interest rate, paying off your principal, getting a loan, and then when to sell your crops, etc. There's so many things to learn. I incorporated them. So it's not about teaching one thing or the other, but you have to understand what the problem is in a particular location and come up with a contextualized, localized solution. So I wouldn't say that technology is the only thing that should be taught in schools. Keep going. In terms of innovative approaches today, it's going to take forever to change anything because teachers are still teaching the same way that they have been teaching for the last 30 years. And I agree. At this rate, schools will never change, right? So what do? I think students have to figure out the way to learn. I think schools do not teach them how to learn, and that is the big issue. I studied in Korea 12 years, from first elementary school all the way to high school. I graduated high school in Korea before I went to the US for my college. I really did not like the education system in Korea. I wanted to get out of it. And I was doing my research. I wanted to find a way to get out of this Korean education system, and I did. I'm not saying that everyone should get out of the education system. I know that the education system in Korea today is much better than 30 years ago. But I think what we should ask the government, the schools, is that we want schools to teach students how to learn, not just memorizing math problems or English problems, etc. It's not just about subject, but how to learn, how to control, how to regulate yourself. That kind of skill sets is a must in schools. Keep going. Why don't I just jump onto the MOOC question?
Yeah, MOOC.
There are about 58 million students who are learning from MOOCs today, massive open online courses. And I have taught a MOOC as well. When I offered a MOOC out of Stanford, I was able to recruit 20,000 students from 170 different countries. That was pretty massive. 20,000 students in my class. And in fact, I was using my smartphone and I was traveling in Tanzania while the course was running. I was not even at Stanford when the course was being taught. I was able to use my smartphone from Tanzania because I had a good signal there, and I was able to lead the whole course. A lot of courses that are labeled as MOOCs today, I know that they are labeled as MOOCs, and when I open them up and see it, it's not really MOOC. They have only 20, 200, maybe maximum couple thousand students. That's not massive enough. Massive enough means that a MOOC has to have large mass. I think 10,000 or 20,000, that is massive. When you have 10,000 and 20,000 students in your class, even if you take 1% of 10,000, that's a lot of students who are going to be making a big difference for themselves as well as their peers in that such massive learning environment. There are unique activities and dynamics that happen in a massive classrooms. But a lot of courses that are designed and offered today and labeled as MOOCs, I don't think they are really MOOCs. So they have to really reconsider how to label them and figure out a better way to teach those MOOCs. In terms of a smartphone, the parents are really worried about them. I have 2 children, and they are all grown, but I did not block them from using the cell phones or TVs or computers or anything. I always gave them a reason to use those tools. Today in schools, there is no curriculum that integrates smartphones. So what do students do? They play games or go Facebook or watch YouTube because there is no applications or there's no curriculum integrating smartphones. If there are curriculum, developed to integrate smartphones and applications and sensors and so many different things, then students will be able to use their phones for different purposes. But right now, there's absence of that sort of resources in schools. That's why students are playing games and doing other things. So I urge Ministry of Education in many different countries to come up with curriculum that effectively integrate and leverage technology of today, not yesterday. That's my answer.